Welcome in to the Off-Brand Avalanche podcast, post Game 7 versus the Dallas Stars. Didn't go the way we wanted it to. First podcast of the offseason, I guess. Game 7 overtime, one of the worst ways to lose a series. I mean, it's about as close as you can come. It really sucks to go down that way, especially the way it played out. Nemesnikov scored that goal with 3.5 minutes left, and things started to look up, and then suddenly
10 seconds later.
10 seconds.
10 seconds later.
The Finnish kid with the hat trick. His first three career playoff goals.
Kirvianka.
Kiviranta.
Kiviranta.
Joel Kiviranta. Exactly. No one's ever heard of him until today, but they've heard of him now. So that's kind of where we're at. I mean, wow. Just the other problem we had in this game was we couldn't kill a penalty, and turns out when you have half your penalty killers injured and you're on your third string goalie, it's not easy to kill a penalty. So that's certainly
Well, that
doesn't help
last
us.
penalty kill, one of our main penalty kill contributors, JT Comfer, got called for the penalty, so that doesn't help anything either.
Does not. When you're missing Comfer and Calvert and Eric Johnson, and even Donskoy gets in the mix once in a while on the PK, so it sucks. You're missing your captain in the game too. That can't help you, especially in such a hard-fought game. It's hard. It's definitely tough. But look, I mean, the boys played well for most of that game. I thought they were the better team. The breaks didn't go our way in this one, and that tends to happen. I mean, see, this is why when we went down 3-1, we said it's so hard because even if we outplay them in all three games, we could still lose one. And that's what happened tonight. I felt that the Avs outplayed the Stars, and despite that, Hutchinson had his best game, despite the fact that he let in four. That was Hutchinson's best game of the series, I thought. He kept us in it with a second left. He made a couple of really, really strong saves, but it just wasn't enough. Sometimes you run into the hot kid, and Kiviranta was real hot tonight.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I would agree that Hutchinson probably did play his best game, but at the same time, it was his best game for a third-string goalie.
Yeah.
And that is the issue in itself right there. There's not too much else you could have asked for him. Coming in, I think this is like when he came into the series, this is his first game played since February. And he really did all he could for us. He gave us chances to win this series, and honestly, like, thank you, Hutchinson, for what you've done. But at the same time, it's like, dude, we talked about it at the beginning of the playoffs. If the Avs end up going down Grubauer and Francouz, it's like we weren't really even like speculating that. We're just like, oh yeah, well, if that's the situation, then like we're pretty much screwed. And turns out that was exactly the situation, and we lost Grubauer and Francouz and had to turn to the third string goalie. And he gave us a chance to come back in the series. I mean, Game 7, overtime winner, like you said, Billy, is as close as a series can get. So
Yeah.
it's just disappointing right now.
Yeah. I mean, he played better than I had expected coming in. You know, he let in a really fluky goal last night, but other than that, he played a solid, like, multiple solid games for us. He gave the Avalanche a chance to win in every game. And it's not an Avs exclusive thing that if you're on your third string goalie, you're probably not going to win. I would say that about pretty much every team in the NHL, save for, like, maybe the New York Rangers have 3 starting caliber goalies, but that's about it. And they're not a good enough team to go on a cup run anyway, as we saw them not even winning their play-in. So I'm impressed with the boys' ability to battle back from that 3-1 deficit. Had we started the series the way we finished it, we would have won the series. Unfortunately, we didn't do that. We came out soft to start the series, and we came out soft to start Game 4 as well, which is another one that feels like the boys could have won. I mean, all 4 Dallas wins felt like games that Colorado could have taken, and if they had just been able to take one of them, just play a little
Yeah.
bit better in one of them. Get a couple more bounces here, a couple bounces there. It's whatever, but it didn't go our way in more ways than one for this series, and that's for sure. McKinnon also did snap that point streak. Looked like he was going to get an assist on that Nemesnikov goal, but he didn't quite touch it. And it looks like the Avs were going to go as far as McKinnon took them because he didn't score in this one, and they didn't win this one. And not to say that McKinnon didn't play well, because I thought McKinnon played fairly well in this game. It wasn't his best game of the series, but he played well. You could tell that he had a lot of drive in this one. He was skating hard every second he was on the ice. He was back checking, he was forechecking, he was driving with the puck. But sometimes you have a bad game just because it doesn't go your way, and that kind of felt like I wouldn't say McKinnon had a bad game, but he didn't have a great game because really it just the luck wasn't on his side in a lot of places.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, Billy, I totally agree. The Avs probably outplayed the Stars this game, but really just and this is why I'm not mad at this at the series loss overall. It's just we could not shake the injury bug. You know, with the break coming into the playoffs, we thought we were going to be super healthy, and that was the case. But apparently, the injury bug didn't leave us from this season, and this is the result when you're down, six of your starters.
Yeah.
This is what happens. And, they played hard. We very well could have won that game. And for that reason, I'm not very mad at the boys, honestly.
I'm absolutely not mad. I'm just
sad,
disappointed right now. Just like sad. Yeah.
Sad.
I'm just sad. Who if we would have gotten past this round, who would have known what would happen in the future? But looking on the brighter side of things, this is a very talented roster, and it will be a very talented roster moving forward for the foreseeable future, especially in Nathan McKinnon's current contract window. This is kind of just the first year that there were actual Stanley Cup aspirations for the Avs. So I'm not really looking at this as like, oh man, we lost our chance here. Yeah. We are just beginning our Stanley Cup chances. And honestly, if you're looking at this entire series as a whole, the amount of starters and losing our top two goaltenders, the fact that we pushed it to a game 7 overtime, and after being down 3-1, that just gives me more hope in the future. But with that being said, it's still very disappointing.
Yeah, and I mean, the reality is that no team in NHL history has won the Stanley Cup every year they've been contenders. Everyone takes a couple of years to get that first one. Even the Chicago Blackhawks and Pittsburgh Penguins in the last decade didn't win the cup every year. You can't win the cup every year because there's other good teams too. And Dallas, despite what they looked like in the regular season, the way that they played in this second round series, they are another team that looks like a contender. They were solid. If Kiviranta keeps it up, they might have a little underrated star on their hand. But
yeah, I do not see that happening though.
I don't think he's going to keep up that hat trick a game pace. But it's impressive. I mean, that's one of those that if I wasn't an Avs fan that hated it because it stings so much, it'd be kind of cool to see a guy like that pull that kind of thing off. But
yeah,
as it stands, I hate it. But I like where the Avs are at. This isn't even. We haven't hit our peak yet. We're ascending towards that peak. We still have Byram on the way. We still have. We'll see what the situation is with Timmins. We still have Newhook on the way. We got guys left. So we're not.
Shane
Bowers, Martin Kaut. This isn't. This if we had won the cup this year, it would have been ahead of schedule. And I mean, we are already ahead of schedule, but this would have been. It would have been incredibly impressive, and honestly, I think we had a good shot. I think a healthy Colorado Avalanche is legitimately one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the NHL, if not the best team in the NHL. It's just that, I mean, how many times this year did we see a healthy Colorado Avalanche? 6?
Yeah.
That's the key word, healthy, and we were not very consistently throughout the year. But the year in a recap right now, very impressive season. If the season would have finished as planned, then I think that we would have taken the first seed in the West. I know that's just me speculating, and obviously, if we were healthy and had healthy goaltending throughout this entire series and a consistent goaltender, then I think we would have easily been on to the Western Conference Finals. But that's the thing that happens. That's the thing that happens in hockey, being that it's so physical, so unpredictable at times that you're not always going to have a healthy roster. And the fact that the Avs pushed to a game seven, especially game seven overtime, even got that go ahead goal late in the third or midway through the third, just shows how much heart this team has and how much potential they have moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason they say that the Stanley Cup is the hardest trophy in sports to win, and it's because sometimes it doesn't matter how good the team you build is. Sometimes you just lose. Sometimes it's just how it is.
Yep.
You just
look at Tampa
you can
last
be the
year.
better team and win. Exactly. Get swept by Columbus. Maybe it was in their heads, maybe it wasn't. I don't know, but Tampa Bay was the best team in the NHL last year, and they didn't win the Stanley Cup. Sometimes the best team doesn't always win. I mean, that's the case in every sport, but I think it's even more so in hockey. It's just so hard to consistently win in hockey. There's so many hot and cold streaks. There's so many bounces that could go the wrong way. There's so many guys on your team that could be injured, and if your goalie's injured, then that's just another thing that can really kill the team.
Yep. Putting some light into this, the time that the Avs do win the Stanley Cup in the next 3 to 5 years, I'm calling it right now. When they do that, it's not going to come with an asterisk next to it, so that's something that we can kind of move on from.
We won't have to worry about it anymore. I mean,
it's not the bubble hockey.
I disagree with the asterisk, but there was always going to be people who said it. So now
that's exactly right.
Whatever, we'll win we'll win another one, and there will be no asterisk.
When fans can actually be there.
Right. So I do want to break down some of these goals because there were some special moments in this game, I thought. But before I do that, just a little nod to our viewers here. Go ahead, hit that like button while you're here. Whatever your platform allows you to do to help us. We stream these live on YouTube, so like and subscribe there. Leave those 5-star Apple iTunes reviews. Like us on Spotify. Follow anything you can do to help the channel grow. And keep sticking with us because we'll have content for you all off season. But getting into some of the goals that were scored, what did you guys think of? I was very surprised to see the Stars score the first goal of the game. I thought the Avalanche came out stronger in the first period, and I was kind of expecting them to score first. And they did have that little lapse, which it was a power play goal, so that has kind of been the struggle all series. Did that surprise you guys at all that they were able to score first?
Not necessarily. The Stars did come out and play their game to an extent. You said it. We've said it so many times. The Avs just didn't really get the bounces they needed, and that's kind of the bottom line. Because I feel like we outplayed them this game. We just needed a couple more bounces here and there.
Yeah. Unfortunately for me, I wasn't able to watch the first period, but it did not come as a surprise that the Stars came out and scored the first goal, especially since that's been a bit of a trend in the series. We've seen it time and time again, and at the beginning of the series when the Stars were scoring the first goal or two, it was looking very like, oh my goodness, the Avs cannot come back from this. But as the series progressed, it turned into the most momentum driven series I've ever seen in my entire life. One team could get a goal right away after that. Another team could get a goal, and honestly, that's testament to the Avalanche. They honestly, in my opinion, kind of made the Stars play to them as a team, more and more as the series progressed. If that makes sense. High series or high scoring series. Not a whole lot of defensive minded hockey like the Stars were so good at during the regular season.
They kind of made the Stars keep pace, and I like that you touched on the ability in this series for goals to happen one right after the other, because after Dallas did score that first goal, less than 2 minutes later, Vlad Nemesnikov, a guy who we've talked about like all series long, who just has not had a good playoffs. But right here, he gets that tip. It would be his first of 2 goals in this game, and it goes off a Dallas Star defender's foot through Hudobin's 5-hole, and the Avs are back to even. And that was a big answer for them, and it was good to see it come from a guy who hadn't been having the best
Yeah,
playoffs.
yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, Billy, you said it all right there. It's very important, especially going against the Stars and what we've seen them from them all season to end up getting that tying goal like right away after, and we've seen the Avs do that a couple times in this series. So that's something that the Stars, with by the definition of like how they play the game, that's not something that they'd be entirely proud of. But at the same time, they were doing things that the Avs do well at the same time. So this was one of the more interesting series that I've seen in a while. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's all for me.
On the tangent of Nemesnikov, he did play a very good game today, like with the 2 goals, like I said, but not so great in the playoffs as a whole. I know we have like the whole offseason to talk roster projections, but just quick thoughts here. What do you think about his chances of getting another contract? I think he probably is priced just out of the Avalanche's range, but if we're not able to bring in any kind of big name like a Taylor Hall or maybe even like a Granlund type player or like really any
Yeah.
kind of second, third line forward, do you think that Nemesnikov has any kind of shot at coming back to Colorado next year?
I would want to say no, just based on how he played, and I just don't really feel like he really meshed with our team, honestly. Just from the
Yeah.
trade deadline to now, he wasn't really. I'm sure he was part of the boys, but I'm not. He just didn't mesh with like the way that the style that we're trying to play,
Yeah, I kind
especially
of
on that
believe
third
that.
and fourth line. That's
Yeah,
just not a spot for him,
Yeah.
yeah,
at
I
least
kind of
in our
believe that
team.
he's a bit of a rental myself, and I don't think that he ends up signing with us. But Billy, you did bring up a good point. I could see a world where he would re-sign with us if we weren't able to acquire one of like the bigger name free agents, like you said, a Granlund or a Taylor Hall. I could see a world where Nemestikov does resign, but if he does resign, he's gotta kind of got to figure out like his spot in the lineup, what he does best, and really like where he fits to help the Avs win. Because ever since he got here, I don't really think there has been a consistent spot from him. We've seen him, especially even in this playoffs, go from the top line all the way down to the fourth line.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, he couldn't ever really find that fit, and I think that's kind of what kills him because he's not exactly a super hard to replace player. You just slot Cout right in there, honestly, and you say, hey, we can put
Yeah,
Cout there, and it's not too difficult.
yeah,
So I don't think he gets re-signed. I think he's probably on his way out, and I think just outside of today, the bad playoffs kind of just confirmed that.
yeah,
So that's where we're at. Burakovsky scored a great goal today. He scored that next goal to make it 2-1,
Yeah,
give the Avs a lead. That was that was a rocket. That was one of the best
absolutely.
snipes I've
It was
seen in these
beautiful.
playoffs.
Yeah,
yeah,
the way he changed the angle on that shot too was just
Yeah,
great. It just opened up the whole right side of the net. Like
a
what a
little
beauty.
drag that just beat
yeah,
Hudobin really, and he did it himself. He picked off the bad pass from Alexiak, which was a really bad pass from Alexiak, but a way to be there from Burakovsky, a way to
yeah,
take advantage of it, and then walk in the little drag to change the angle and just beat Hudobin high with a nasty shot.
yeah.
Yeah, that
It's
was beauty.
something that's been a little bit encouraging for me as the series has progressed and gone deeper and deeper is that we did start to see some more depth scoring, specifically Burakovsky. I thought Burakovsky the second half of the series played absolutely terrific, and he was kind of showing like why Sakic brought him in the offseason. This is the player that we wanted Burakovsky to be, especially coming into the postseason. And if you look at his like prior postseason success, especially in elimination games, it was pretty impressive, and that didn't necessarily change in the
Yeah.
series.
Yeah, I loved what Burakovsky did. I mean, he went through lulls for when the entire team went through a lull in the first 3 games of the series. Burakovsky also went through a lull, but what in the elimination games, I believe he scored in all three, and that's I
Yeah,
mean, what more can you ask for out of a guy like that? So
yeah,
an RFA this offseason, so we'll see what kind of money they get. He's definitely staying in town. There's no concern about
yeah,
that, but it'll be interesting to see what kind of money he gets. He's and really from the fan perspective, what I'm more curious about is what kind of term he gets because he could get.
yeah,
I could see him legitimately getting anywhere from 2 to 5 years. So we'll have to see
yeah.
what Joe Sakic and Burakovsky's agent can really come to in that regard. Going into the second
Yeah.
period. Oh, go
I
ahead.
wouldn't. I was just gonna say I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if he's signs a 1 year like prove it again type of
Yeah,
deal.
that's definitely possible. So going into the second period, the Avs held the lead, and I felt pretty good about it, but I wouldn't say I was super confident. Just a 1 goal lead, and in this kind of series, anything can happen. The Stars got the next goal, or not exactly early in the second period, but the first goal of the second period, and it was Kivi Ranta's first of the game. This one sucked because Connaughton would have stopped that if his stick didn't break. He would have
Yeah.
been able to lift it if he had just not broken his stick, and that's not his fault. Obviously, he just played it to the best of his ability, but his stick is broken. He can't lift Kiviranta's stick, and Kiviranta just gets it there to tip it over Hutchinson's glove.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
that was pretty demoralizing, especially coming into the second. It's like we're up 2-1. Like let's just hold this lead, hopefully get the next goal, and then something like that happens, and all of a sudden it's a tie game. And we have seen that just a trend that happened throughout this entire game. It's just like 1 goal leads that we can't figure out how to find the next goal.
Yeah, exactly. And because if we had had a 2 goal lead at any point in this game, I feel like we could have closed it out. But we
Yeah,
just
Yeah.
were not able to. And sometimes it was fluky. Sometimes the Stars just hustled. But
Sometimes Nieto misses on the breakaway.
yep.
yeah,
Although I thought that was a pretty good move and just a better save by
It was a good
Hudobin.
save. Was a good save. But like, come on.
yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely unfortunate. You really would have liked to have that one back.
It's kind of the epitome of Matt Nieto's career right there.
Yeah, it is.
Just has chances, but goodness gracious, Nieto can't finish to save his
Yeah.
life sometimes.
Yeah. But luckily, the Avalanche did bounce right back on the power play and get their only power play goal of the game. Nazem Kadri continued his same thing I said about Burakovsky. He went through a lull when the rest of the team did, but Kadri was massive in these whole playoffs, and that was a big goal at the time to
Mhm.
kind of switch the momentum back in the Avs' favor. And he's gotten it done on the power play so much in this series, and really, I feel like Kadri might be one of the biggest reasons that the power play was clicking quite a bit more in the
Yeah,
playoffs than it was in the regular season.
yeah, yeah. He played a pretty important part, especially parking himself right in front of the net. We saw him score multiple goals in the postseason, just parking himself right in front of the
Yeah.
net and getting those dirty goals, which we really needed, especially playing Dallas, in which those are the type of goals that Dallas gets time and time again.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the way to beat Dallas, too, because they're not going to give you any kind of dangle through everyone because they have rock solid defensemen. You got to get those gritty ones, and
Yeah,
Kadri was able to do that. Unfortunately, it didn't hold all that long because then the Stars would go on a power play in the third period, and Radulov would get his second power play goal of the game on a tip. And this one was
yeah,
frustrating to me because I didn't necessarily love the call on the Comfort trip on that. That was the one behind the
Yeah.
net. It looked like their legs just got tangled up because they're both pushing hard. I didn't like that call much at all.
Yeah, I
me
did not
either.
either. You gotta like let the players play in that situation. Like, come on, man. I don't even. The stick wasn't even there, honestly.
Yeah. It
Their
was
legs
the
did
leg
get
that
tied
it
up.
got that tripped it, and I was like,
Yeah.
Radulov's driving towards the net. compers trying to drive the other way. Their legs got tied up, and one of them fell over, so the other guy got a penalty. I was not a fan of that call. Credit to Radulov for being able to draw it by going hard and then scoring his second power play goal of the game, but it was definitely a little bit frustrating to have the game tied up that way. And then we
Yeah.
just, I mean, let's get into that insane ending because 3.5 minutes left. Nemesnikov gets his second of the game on one that bounces over 5 sticks in front of the net, and then he bats it down, and
Yeah.
it goes in. And then at that point, we're all like, 3.5 minutes, we've got a 1-goal lead. We like where we're at. We thought we were safe right there. Turns out not.
Nope.
Bro, Nas, like handle the puck, my guy.
Yeah, that turnover
Yeah.
by
That's
Kadri,
his fault.
that's a killer. That was a killer. And then that was an incredible shot by Kiviranta off the near post and the far post. That's like the perfect angle to just bounce
Yeah.
in. And like you said,
That's an incredible
Yeah.
shot. Yeah.
and clutch timing too. So that forces overtime, and then we all know what happens next. Kiviranta, after the Avs can't get it out of the zone, gets it from the slot,
Yeah.
buries the winner, and his hat trick goal. And that's where we are.
And do you guys kind of feel like that overtime was a bit of an epitome of the entire series? I feel like the Avs are absolutely dominating until they
Yep.
weren't.
I agree completely. It was
Mhm.
the Avs were. It was all Avalanche for large chunks, and then there was early on the Stars had a chunk, and then right as the Stars scored, they had another stretch where it was one sided, but it was constantly one sided, alternating teams.
Yeah, absolutely. That was just, and at the end of the day, I do feel like the Stars were getting the better chances in overtime, but I feel like the Avs are kind of controlling a little bit more of the possession.
Yeah, and I like to see LOC driving from behind the net, and I thought
Yeah,
McKinnon had a nice little drive, the pass out front. It was just a lot of not being able to find guys. You know, we were getting the puck out to the front of the net and then wouldn't have anyone there. So, and part of that is just I think the boys maybe played a little bit conservatively, trying to not get scored on and not give up odd man rushes. And what they lost was the ability to get those dirty ones in front when they did pop up in the crease and in the high slot.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep. But that was just so disappointing at the end night right there. Oh my goodness,
Yeah,
just
very
devastating.
scary.
Yeah.
But what can you do at this point? There's nothing you can do, and we're just looking forward to next season. And hopefully, the season starts December 1st, like it's kind of projected to be right now. So it's a little bit of a shorter
Yeah.
off season.
That's our other little saving grace here is, we don't have to dwell on this for a full off season. We get that shortened off season, so that'll be real nice. I mean, we've got some good stuff to talk about here, so stay tuned with Off Brand Avalanche because we'll look around the league a little bit on Monday. Then we'll talk some really just roster projections into the future. We'll talk free agents. We'll talk draft. We'll get into all that, so we'll have content for you all off season long, and then we'll pick it right back up once the Avs get going again. So
Yep.
it's disappointing. You hate to see a loss like this, but it's still a great time to be an Avs fan, and you love how they battled back. It's promising. It's still promising. It's tough to take moral victories when you're when it's a year that you are contending, but at the same time, this
Yeah.
was you had all the injuries in the world. At what point, what can you do? So
Mhm.
this is
Yeah.
just the way it played out for us this year. We'll talk goaltending if there needs to be any changes. We'll talk all that stuff. So, any last things that you guys want to touch on this episode before we head out and kick off this off season?
Nothing for
I'm
me,
good.
man.
Yeah.
I kind of said it all.
All right. Well, like I said, thank you to all our viewers. If you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe, do whatever you can to help us grow this channel, and stay tuned. Just because the season's over doesn't mean the Avs content has to end. We are fans year round, so we'll see you guys on Monday when we drop our next podcast.